our city. Well, we've had a number of them. Many will remember what happened to the NSSF Pensions Tower when that collapsed. We saw what happened in Chitezi. We saw what happened in Chiwempe. That is still much in the division. But recently, we saw what happened in the city center. That is Kisenyi, where we saw a building under construction collapsing and killing people. With me in studios to discuss this is the spokesperson or the mouthpiece of Kampala Capital City Authority, that is Daniel Niwabine, with whom we are going to be discussing this topic. And of course, we know that you'll be able to contribute by using our various social media platforms. You can send us a message on our WhatsApp number that will be on your screen, an SMS or WhatsApp message, and we'll be reading it out. Also, remember, you can go on our Facebook page, on our Twitter handle, and we'll be able to read your messages regarding the topic of discussion. Niwabine.
Yes,
good morning.
A very good morning. A very good morning, Bob, and a very good morning to our viewers. And a good morning, Uganda, and Kampala in particular.
Before we even dive into this topic, we have our poll question this morning, which is naming a road that is after BMK, one of the tycoons in the state. And that is, what are your thoughts on a move to rename William Street to BMK, and should this be... Briefly, I've seen some streets move Muyenga, you see Chirabo closed, Kabogos are closed. Is it the people that just wake up and name them, or do you participate in any way as KCCA?
Well, allow me to ask the producer to accept me to remove my mask, since we have the 2-meter distance, so I can be able to speak properly to explain some of these issues.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. But viewers, COVID is here, and we appeal to you, like everybody else here in the studio is, to keep on your masks, sanitize, social distance, and go get vaccinated, because that is the best way we are going to defeat COVID-19. Road naming. It's a great proposal, especially to have a road named after one of our city magnates, someone who has helped develop not just the skyline of Kampala, but also provided employment, and his legacy goes on forever. Our condolences to the family, and we pray God gives him a peaceful rest in eternity. Now, road naming has a process. There's a process that you go through to name, and this process is guided by a regulation and a guideline, that is the Kampala Road Naming Guideline. It is also enshrined in the KCCA Act, whereby properties or roads in a particular area have to be identified and named. Now, it takes the community of that particular place to come up with a name that is in line with their aspirations, that is in line with things they identify with, or in respect to people that have contributed greatly to that society. So that community sits and comes up with a name, usually 3 names, and these are forwarded to their division council. Later on, they are forwarded to the authority council, that is at City Hall. And once the name is passed, then it is forwarded for gazetting, and that name, that road or that access acquires a name.
Well explained, because some of the things I've been seeing and wondering, go to Kololo, go to Muyenga, find that maybe the first person to come to that place, the entire lane is named after him.
Yes.
But good, you've explained that. Going back to the issue of collapsing buildings in Kampala, most of those under construction. Daniel, let's first understand. We know you're mandated as KCCA, but for us to understand where the mistake, maybe the problem could be, is what is your role? What do you require for a person who is to start up a building? What are some of the yardstick, the fundamental principles for one to set up a structure in Kampala? Then that will give us really to understand if by any way you've slept on duty.
Well, we have two main permissions in the city, but we also have the other supporting ones. We have the physical planning permission. This looks at land use. How are you using the space that you want to put a building onto? If this is an industrial park or an industrial area, are you going to put a residential house? If it is a commercial area, are you going to put a hospital there? So the land use, and that is the planned land use of the area, is very critical. Of course, this is supported by other permissions, like you need to have an environmental impact assessment under the NEMA Act for you to use that land to what you want to use it for. Now, if you conform to the special use, that is a physical planning permission, once you conform to it, then we go to the building permission. That is permission to build. Now, building permission looks at the structure that is going to be elevated in that particular space. If you have gotten into a residential area or a commercial area, and the physical planner or the physical planning permission is saying it's okay, you can go ahead and put up a commercial structure. Then we go to the building
structure,
the building control, or the building permission. Now, this looks at the architectures of that particular property. It is a four-storied house or a four-storied building. What should be the size of the pillar? What should be the nature of steel, the size of the steel that you're going to use? What should be the mixing ratio? What will the ventilation look like? What will the door, what is the spanning from one pillar to another? So that architectural structure, as well as the materials to be used, the supervision to be done, all is under the building permission. Now, once you conform to all those standards of the building itself now, the electricals, the plumbing, all of them are in that building permission. Once you conform to them, then you get a building permit.
Yes.
Now, once you get a building permit, any structure that gets a building permit, that is a structure that KCCA supervises. We supervise it at all levels, from foundation, from ensuring that it is cordoned off. We go to the first slab, we go to the second slab. At every level, we are supervising it to see whether the supervision is right. That is the people working on the site, the engineers, the foremen, the mixing, the architectures, whether you're conforming to to the drawings that you had. Because all these, in the end, once they are altered, they can pose a danger. Now, all buildings that get building permission have the supervision of KCCA. And all the buildings that have gotten this permission, none of them, to our recent recollection, has gotten any fatality or has collapsed.
Okay, we will believe that none of them so far, because unfortunately we've not seen a report being given on many of these buildings that have collapsed for us to ascertain that indeed these were supervised by KCCA. But with that escape route, if we were to believe that, let's now look at these buildings that are raised to third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor, and KCCA, you're not aware that a building structure can, so you do not issue the permit, that is, you do not look at the physical planning. So a structure is set up and you're in the city and you're not aware?
Well, we cannot call them buildings or even structures if they don't have permission. Some of these I would call them concrete elevations supported by wood.
Daniel.
Like the one that recently collapsed. That is a concrete elevation, a pile of steel and concrete that was supported by wood and came down under its own weight. So, but it does not mean we don't intervene. Even where someone is doing the wrong thing, like that piling that was in Chisenyi, KCCA comes in to ensure that we stop this. How do we do it? The law provides for what should be done in case someone is constructing an illegal structure. And we're a country of laws. And this is one of the things that we cherish. Our democracy, our legal system, it's something that we cherish. And both government and the citizen, or under the individual, who can be a person, a human being, or a company, they must go before the law if they are to do certain things. So in the same spirit, when a building, when a piling is being set up in that format, we have laws that govern the way we act. One, you need to issue a notice, a removal notice. It is a removal notice because this is a pile that is being put together that doesn't have any permission. So you issue a removal notice. And the law is specific. It tells you that once you have issued the removal notice, then you give it 28 days.
From the day you've issued it?
From the day you've issued it. And we believe that the law must work. After issuing the removal notice, once we go back or once we come back and we find that you have continued, we issue you with an enforcement notice.
Now 28 days plus?
28.
Again, it's also 28?
Yes. Now, once we issue you with an enforcement notice, we are telling you that the law is what it is, not what it should be. We issue you with an enforcement notice that now that you have failed to remove this thing yourself, we are going to come and remove it at your own cost. And you have seen us do this. You have seen us what we have done in the old tax park. There are several buildings. We have
That's just a drop in the ocean.
Even if you're to say that, then this building, we have over 1,000 sites going on. So should we say this is also a drop in the ocean?
Let me just get you clearly
but every
on this. Let me just get you clearly on this. You've been in Kampala. We've all been in Kampala for some time. And I don't think that applies to the poor. I've seen buildings, small structures in Machindye, in Kampala Central, soon after being put up. So do we have a grade of buildings where the 28 plus 28 work? Or is it a selective enforcement or even corruption? Because for me, I see just even one time as someone constructing, in just a few days, you've brought your graders, and you're like, no, you don't have a permit. Then what happens to a building that has been under construction? Yes, you give them the 28 days, but was on floor 1, then it goes to floor maybe 5 or floor 2, then sometimes even finished and occupied. When collapses, KCS says you didn't have A, you didn't have B, you didn't have C.
Now, that is where the challenge is. And this is a challenge of us as a citizenry, of us as a people. Because whereas we have the mandate to monitor, we also have the mandate to follow the law. But these buildings are constructed within our communities. We have the LOC chairperson there. We have the area councillors there. We have even the citizens ourselves, whistleblowers. Now, some of these buildings, in fact, one of the reasons I suspect, because I've had a brief, I've looked at a brief of the National Building Review Board, are put up sometimes at night to evade our enforcement, to evade our monitoring. So people go in, build in the middle of the night. We had COVID, we had a lockdown. It is not only the public that was locked down, even us as KCCA, we put down our workforce to 10%. 10%. It means this affected all of us. But someone with impunity decides to go on piling. Now we need to teach even the developers themselves. This is a loss of over 700 million shillings if I were to make an assessment, a loose assessment.
And it could be a loan.
It could be more because I don't...
Even a loan, maybe someone got a loan.
Now imagine you lose this kind of money simply because you did not obtain permission. It would be different, because once a building has permission, then KCCA is mandated to go and supervise it, give guidance. And we do this. Over 1,000 sites have come up. We have every year over 200 buildings that are complete. And they don't collapse because we supervise them stage by stage. But here, people build in the middle of the night. People build with impunity, even when you have issued notices. So it must be a mental infrastructure away from the physical enforcement. And we say that as a society, as Kampala, it is wrong to build without permission.
Let's look
as the LOCs of that particular area, they should be raising a red flag and reporting to KCCA. Even you as a citizen, if a building is being put up without a placard of its details, because it's in the law that whichever building is being put up, you must show the architect, you must show the impression, you must show the supervisor. So, even in our own communities, let us raise red flags.
Looking at communities, we know people with criminal minds will always be there. That's why you have coercive forces, that's why you have institutions, that's why you have gatekeeping, I would say. Do you believe as KCCA, the regulator of this, you've really done enough? Let me take you to the days of COVID-19, the 42 days lockdown, when His Excellency said arcades should open. Niwabine, there is so much that was unearthed of buildings already occupied, how their architectural plans had been distorted, how what would have been maybe parking lots, and the base is now full as stores, how the electric installation, how the ventilation, these have not collapsed. And you said your report, none of the supervised. But actually, when we look at them, there are so many mistakes that prove KCCA did not do due diligence. Either it was corruption, either it was selective enforcement, that even the ones we could cherish do not meet the standards if you are to go back and try to examine them.
When a building collapses or when a fatality takes place, the media and the world are quick to look at that fatality. We wouldn't want even a single life lost in this city. We wouldn't want a single building to collapse. We want people's money to be invested and they get their return on investment. That is why we supervise. When you look at the arcades we have about 250 arcades in the city. But even in the opening of the reopening, the partial reopening, because we are still in partial, were partially opened. We inspected buildings to make sure that they conform to the standards of the SOPs, and in order to ensure that we minimize the spread of COVID-19. We started with about 50 buildings that conformed out of about 250. It took us another 3 weeks to have 70% of the buildings conform. Why? Because we have a mechanism and the ability to inspect. We were able, during the lockdown, for example, to repair and upgrade the Chikubo lane. But we found so many challenges. People in their properties divert sewage. They cut down toilets that were on particular floors and converted them into shops. Able to ensure that these proprietors of these properties realign them to what they originally should have been. So it means we are there. When you see buildings not collapsing, it means there's someone behind there who is working. Somebody is working. Our physical planners, our building inspectors are working. KCCA is actually working. That is why we see very few of these occurrences. We wouldn't want any. When you go downtown there, we come to the standards. The battles that we went through during reopening, Some proprietors making phone calls to far places, to where, and we opened these properties that were conforming. Even those that have turned basements, that were parking lots, and it rains, then people's property gets destroyed. We gave them notices.
Well done.
And we blocked those basements from being shops. You'll be surprised. You'll go there and you find an entire 2 floors down in the basement. They are not operational, simply because someone is working.
So
now, for those who front impunity, who work with impunity, we are going to catch them. We are going to prosecute them. We are going to bring down those pilings. Fortunately, now we are working very closely with the Uganda police. We are working very closely with the National Building Review Board. And we need to find avenues within the law where we can make these
So would you say that the law is the scapegoat for such people, because it gives 28, then again another 28?
We shall not call it a scapegoat. It is an enabler to allow us to do the right thing. But some people abuse the law. And that is why we want to find a more workable method of enforcement and ensuring compliance. If it means making these places crime scenes or potential crime scenes, then we shall look through the laws and see what can be used.
Finally, looking at what we have in place, as the body responsible for this, how many have you held accountable? Can you really have a record or a proof of accountability that yes, we have been able to net such amount of people, such number of people, and maybe they're now serving sentences? Because there has to be something deterrent, that another person will know that let me follow procedure, because so and so, when they messed with the procedure, this is what they're serving, maybe this sentence. Like we've seen many times, these ladies vending, some people setting up stores, they face the wrath of the law. What about these big, maybe billionaire, multi-billionaires that set up these buildings?
We have a number of cases that are before the courts of law. We have also conducted a number of demolitions, some of which have even appeared in the media. Unfortunately, those that are before the courts of law, I am not at liberty to mention, because I would be flouting the law of sub judice. Once a matter is before court, we let the courts decide. But we have over 100 cases. We have done confiscations at several sites within the city. This is all to stop people who are doing wrong things. If you go through, you'll find wheelbarrows, you'll find spades, we have confiscated construction tools at illegal sites and asked the foremen or the builders at that site to bring the proprietor of. Some of them we have held them because of constructing at an illegal site. So there is a lot that is going on. We may not be able to come out every week and say, this week we are supervising 100 sites. But if that is what it is going to be, then we shall, now that we are going into the parish model, we shall disclose this information per parish and say these are the construction sites that are permitted to go on in this particular parish, such that the people know. But it is our responsibility as citizenry, one, to do the right thing, to follow the law, and two, to protect our investments and our resources, not to waste them, as well as protect the lives of the people, the innocent people that come to find a living at these workspaces.
Well, I'll be reading one or two of your messages. Please keep them coming on our WhatsApp number, that is 0709 60 25 92. 0709 60 25 92. Keep them brief, give us your name and where you're watching from, and I'll be reading them out. Regarding the collapsing buildings where New Abine calls them piles of sand?
No, those are concrete elevations.
Concrete elevations.
Supported usually by wood.
Where some Ugandans believe and feel that maybe the regulator, that is KCCA, has not done so much to ensure that we prevent this. They have not been proactive. We've just seen them many times when incidents have happened, lives have been lost, and they'll come up to ensure this does not get a permit. And people are asking then, where were you? But he says the law also acts in favor sometimes of these very people, because 28 days plus another 28 days, if a person chooses not to put down the structure or go through the genuine means, then it doesn't. It makes things very hard. But finally, Daniel, as we give way to sports, Ruben is very ready to give us those interesting games and all that. Some have also alluded to corruption and bureaucracy in ensuring they get the right documentation from KCCA.
Well,
you make it so hard.
Well, in construction, there is a need for some bureaucracy. However, if that bureaucracy is overtaken by corruption, then that is terrible, that is bad. But we appeal to the public. And now that we are going to have an automated approval system, where we are going to reduce human contact in the approvals, then we are going to reduce the allegation of corruption. But even you who is going to construct a building, these buildings cost a lot. People spend a lifetime to raise a shelter. What about a huge building like that? We appeal to you that money that you're alleging to give to any of our employees, use it to do the right thing. Or report to us who is eating this money. Because we have not prosecuted anyone. We have not had anyone coming up and saying, they took my money, or they have asked me for money. So help us stop unsupervised works by coming through the process.
Let me read this one message as we wind up. Deo Simbarara, it is hard for a community to be involved, especially as civilians and even the chairman, because we are in a country where the question, who are you, works a lot, and even the construction sites are guarded by the police. We don't feel KCCA on ground.
Well, that is unfortunate, but the LOC, the strongest person in that community is the LOC1 chairperson. The foundation of our governance is on the LOC1. That is why that is a very critical role, and its membership. So if we are claiming that these people don't have the power, then we are compromising the very fabric of our society. LOCs out there, you have the mandate, you have the power to red flag these things, to report to KCCA, to report to your division offices. And where the enforcement is required, we shall unleash that enforcement. But all the power is there at the LOC. Even us as citizens, you can even arrest, by the way, under the Magistrates Act, around Section 40, citizen can arrest a wrongdoer. And you say, we're arresting this person, he's constructing besides my property, and his illegal piling may hit down my house. You arrest him and take him to police. So there are avenues of stopping this, but we must work together. However, as KCCA, we are going to increase the rigor with which we enforce some of these things, and we are going to work and exploit the synergies that we have with the Uganda Police Force, with the Building Review Board, and the communities to ensure that this does not go on.
Well, I want to thank you, Daniel Niwabine, who is the spokesperson of Kampala Capital City Authority. We hope that there will be more proactiveness in terms of ensuring that they fight this issue where people, according to KCCA, violate the guidelines that then end up causing loss of lives and property. And also us as citizens, you have a responsibility. Where the call is upon you to be active, do not give up. Yes, we accept there could be challenges, but let's continue doing our best. You never know who will perish in such a building. You might think it's far from you. By the end of the day, maybe your son, your daughter is passing by, and those that are also violating these standards. Once the structure is up, you never know who, when danger will strike. It could even take the entire you. Have a lovely day. God bless you. I'll leave you with Ruben Pima Kaseda Chipida. I'm going to take you through the world of sports. There is so much interesting stories there, and he will be letting us know what happened, how your team performed, and more of that. Till tomorrow, God bless you. Stay safe. COVID is around. Go for vaccination. Teachers, we need schools to reopen, and the public, we need to fight the positivity rate. See you tomorrow.